Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to my class. This is lecture number 25. In this lecture entitled Dalhousie, we will be discussing the annexationist policies Lord Dalhousie had followed in India, as well as the administrative reforms he introduced from 1848 to 1856. Lord Dalhousie was appointed as the Governor General of India in 1848. He succeeded to the post to Lord Hardinge. Before his appointment as the Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie had served as the President of the Board of Trade. He continued to the post till 1856. In 1856, he returned from India. He adopted an annexationist policy by bringing most parts of India under the control of the British. While at the same time, he also introduced many liberal reforms. First of all, his annexationist policy, which states Lord Dalhousie annexed before going to the liberal administrative reforms he introduced, starting with the annexation of Punjab. How did Lord Dalhousie annex Punjab? Multan had been the part of Punjab since 1818, which had been merged with Punjab during the period of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Mulraj, he was the Diwan of Multan. He rose in revolt against the British. When the British required Mulraj, the Diwan of Multan, to pay an amount to the tune of 20 lakh rupees. In addition to the payment of 20 lakh rupees, Mulraj was also required to surrender territories between Ravi River up to Lahore Darbar, and he was also told to raise the revenue of Multan. But these were the humiliating terms imposed by the British on Mulraj, the Diwan of Multan. So, in order to register his protest, Mulraj tendered his resignation. And after resigning Mulraj, the British government decided to appoint a new Diwan to Multan. The new Diwan was to be Han Singh. The British sent Han Singh to Multan to assume the charge of the new Diwan, along with the two English officials, Agnew and Anderson. These three, Agnew and Anderson, the British officials, and Khan Singh, went to Multan. Khan Singh was about to assume the Diwanship of Multan. They were accompanied by 530 irregular army men also. But once these English officials and Khan Singh reached Multan, these English officials were captured by the Multanis and put to death under the leadership of Mulraj. So, because of the murder of the English officials, the British decided to retaliate. In 48, military operations were started against Multan. Because of the force from the people, Mulraj, who assumed the leadership of the rebellion against the British. Since Multan formed the part of Punjab since 1818, uprisings broke out in Punjab as well against the British. Punjab was now under the subsidiary alliance imposed by the British in 1846. A violent war occurred between the Sikh forces and the British forces. In this battle between the Sikh forces and the English, the Sikh army was defeated, following which British annexed the entire Punjab to the British territory. With this, it was during the period of Lord Dalhousie, Punjab got annexed to the British Empire in India. Now, annexation of Lower Burma, otherwise called Pegu. How did Dalhousie annex Lower Burma or Pegu? A treaty between Lower Burma and the British had been in existence since 1826. It was the Treaty of Endabu. This treaty was signed between the British and the Burmese in 1826. After the signing of this treaty, a large number of British merchants had settled on the southern coast of Burma as well as Rangoon. But these British merchants complained about the ill treatment at the hands of the governor of Rangoon. In an incident, two British captains, Shepherd and Levis, they were heavily fined by the government of Burma by levelling certain charges. After it, these two British captains, Shepherd and Levis, sent a petition to Dalhousie to redress their grievances. This petition provided an opportunity to Lord Dalhousie to intervene Lower Burma and later to annex it. Dalhousie dispatched a warship to Burma. It captured one of the Burman king's ships, following which a war broke out between Burma and the British. In this war, the Burmese failed. Following the failure of Burmese in the war between the British, Dalhousie annexed Lower Burma or Pegu on 20 December 1852. After the annexation of Punjab, Lower Burma or Pegu was annexed to the British Empire on 20 December 1852. Why did Dalhousie annex Burma to the British Empire? Because the advance of the Americans and the French in the eastern seas, that is why, to protect the British interest against the possible American and French designs, Lord Dalhousie decided to annex Lower Burma or Pegu to the British Empire in India. Now, annexation of some parts of Sikkim. Sikkim was a small state It was located between Nepal and Bhutan. Certain charges were levelled against the Raja of Sikkim. What were the charges levelled against the Raja of Sikkim? That is, maltreating and imprisonment of 2 English doctors. These were the charges levelled against the Raja of Sikkim by Dalhousie. In 1850, some outlying districts of Sikkim, including the hill station of Darjeeling, were annexed by Dalhousie to the British India. Now, his policy of doctrine of lapse. The doctrine of lapse was used by Lord Dalhousie to annex a number of Indian states to the British Empire in India. First of all, let us discuss what doctrine of lapse was. It was meant that a sanction to be provided by the paramount power, that is a British power in India, for the succession of the adopted son to the royal power. So, in order to succeed an adopted son, the permission from British was required with the introduction of the doctrine of lapse. If the Indian ruler had no natural heir, his territory would be capitulated to the British India. And where did Lord Dalhousie apply this policy of doctrine of lapse? It was applicable to the Hindu princes and chieftains with the tributary and subordinate position to the British government. This doctrine of lapse was applicable only to the Hindu chieftains and princes which were tributary or subordinated to the British government. This was not applicable to the states which were not a tributary or a state which was not subordinated to the government. This doctrine of lapse was applicable only to the subordinate and tributary Hindu states. And it was also made applicable to the Hindu states which had been created or revived by the sanats or the grants of the British government. For subordinate tributary states or the Hindu states which had been or created and revived by the British government. It was not applicable to the Muslim states. It was not invented by Lord Dalhousie. The doctrine of lapse had already been in existence in some sort of way. But what Dalhousie did, he uniformly applied the policy of doctrine of lapse for annexing Indian states to the British Empire. He did not ignore or neglect any opportunity to annex the Indian states by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse. By applying this policy of the doctrine of lapse, he annexed a number of important Indian states to the British Empire in India. Satara was annexed to the British Empire by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse in 1848. Satara was the first state to annex to the British Empire by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse. It was followed by Jaipur and Sambalpur. These Indian states were annexed to to the British Empire in India in 1849 by Dalhousie. In 1850, Fagat was annexed to the British Empire in India by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse by Lord Dalhousie. In quick succession, Udaipur was annexed in 1852, Jhansi was annexed in 1853, Nagpur was annexed in 1854. All these Indian states were annexed to the British Empire in India by Lord Dalhousie by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse. Let us discuss the annexation of certain important Indian states to the British Empire by Lord Dalhousie. Take the case of annexation of Satara. Satara was the first state annexed to the British Empire by applying the policy of doctrine of lapse. You now recall that the Third Anglo-Maratha War, wherein Lord Hastings defeated the combined armies of the Marathas, and after the defeat of the Marathas, a principality of Satara was created by Lord Hastings, and in this small principality, Pratap Singh was made the ruler. Pratap Singh, he was one of the representatives of the house of the Shivaji. He was one of the descendants of Shivaji. He was made the ruler of the small principality of Satara in 1818 by Lord Hastings, after defeating the combined forces of the Marathas in 1818 in the third round of struggle between the Marathas and the British. In 1839, Pratap Singh was deposed and he was replaced by his brother Appa Sahib. In 1839, Appa Sahib became the ruler of the small principality of Satara, which had been created by using the dominions carved out from a Peshwa. Appa Sahib died without a son, but he had adopted a son some days before his death. But this adoption was made without the consent of the English East India Company. However, the Bombay Council, headed by George Clerk, advised against the annexation of Satara. Lord Dalhousie annexed Satara to the British Empire in India. Sambalpur. Now, take the case of Sambalpur. Narayan Singh was the ruler of Sambalpur. He died. He did not have a natural heir. He died without adopting a son. His statue was annexed to the British Empire in 1849. Next, Lord Dalhousie annexed Jhansi. The Raja of Jhansi had been originally a vassal of the Peshwa of the Marathas. After the defeat of Peshwa Bajirao II, a treaty was made with Rao Ramchand. Rao Ramchand was recognized as the ruler of Jhansi. Jhansi was a vassal state of the Marathas. After the defeat of the Marathas, Rao Ramchand became the ruler of Jhansi. But under the subordination of British, Jhansi was created. After the death of Raja, the English East India Company recognized Raghunath Rao. He was an old uncle of the Raja. Raghunath Rao in 1835 became the next ruler of Jhansi. Since he was an old person, he did not rule for long. He died within a few years. After his death, Gangadhar Rao became the next ruler of Jhansi. In 1853, Gangadhar Rao died without a natural heir. So, the British, the Dalhousie, took it an opportunity to annex Jhansi to the British Empire in India, and Jhansi was annexed to the British Empire. The annexation of Jhansi created one of the bitterest enemies of the British, Rani Lakshmi Bai. She led the forces against the British, but she died while heroically fighting against the British. She died while fighting against the British. Now coming to annexation of Nagpur. The Raja of Nagpur died in 1853 without adopting a son. But the Rani of Nagpur claimed to adopt a son to inherit Nagpur, but it was not recognized by Dalhousie, and Nagpur was adopted to the British Empire in 1854. What was the condition of the adoption of the sons during the period of the Mughals and the Peshwas? During the period of the Mughal administration or under the Peshwas in Maratha country, with the recognition of the supreme power, the adopted son was allowed to inherit the territory by paying succession duty or Nasarana. So, it was during the period of the Mughals or under the Peshwas in Maratha country, it was possible to adopt a son, and the son inherited the rule by paying succession duty or Nasarana. But these customs and practices now began to be violated by Lord Dalhousie. He did not allow the adopted son to inherit the rule. However, English East India Company had given assurances from time to time that the customs and practices of the Indians would be respected. But the action of Dalhousie was against the assurance given by the English East India Company from time to time. Dalhousie used the policy of doctrine of lapse for imperial purpose, that is annexation and to extending British rule into new areas. Dalhousie was an annexationist par excellence. The Indian rulers feared that the annexation of their territories was only a question of time. The Indian rulers expressed the view that the annexation was not through the application of the policy of doctrine of lapse, but it was because of the lapse of all morals on the part of the English East India Company. It was the views expressed by the rulers of Indian states. The two states were returned later during the period of canning to the original rulers. It was Fagat and Udaipur. These states had been annexed by Dalhousie by using the policy of doctrine of lapse, but it was during the period of Lord Canning these states were returned to the original rulers. In addition to annexationist policy, Lord Dalhousie also abolished titles and pensions. Now let us see where abolition of titles and pensions had taken place. In 1853, Nawab of Carnatic died. Dalhousie asked the Madras government not to recognize anyone as his successor. Likewise, after the death of Raja of Tanjore in 1855, the regal title was abolished by Lord Dalhousie. Lord Dalhousie also planned to abolish the title of the Mughal emperor after the death of serving Mughal ruler Bahadur Shah II. He also decided to stop the pension to the tune of 12 million rupees per annum given to Mughal emperor. But these policies, that is abolition of the legal title of the Mughal emperor after the death of Bahadur Shah II, he was the last Mughal ruler, as well as the pension which had been given to him annually to the tune of 12 million rupees. But these policies put forward by Lord Dalhousie was not approved by the Court of Directors. From 1818 onwards, after the failure of the Marathas in the third round of struggle, Peshwaship abolished. Peshwa Bajirao II was pensioned off, and he had been receiving pension since 1818. But the British denied pension to Nana Sahib, the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. Why the British denied pension to Nana Sahib? Lord Dalhousie expressed that since Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II, the British would deny pension to Nana Sahib. So Nana Sahib became one of the prominent leaders of the revolt of 1857 and joined with the rebels against the British. Now, annexation of Berar. Berar was a territory belonging to the Nizam of Hyderabad. As you recall that the Nizam of Hyderabad had already accepted subsidiary alliance in 1798 and had been paying annually to the British for the maintenance of the troops in Nizam's territories. But Nizam had failed to pay annual tribute to the English East India Company for the maintenance of the British troops in his dominions. Because of the failure of the annual tribute to the British government, Nizam Hyderabad was forced to cede the cotton producing area of Berar and the adjoining areas to the English East India Company. Thus, the British got Berar and the adjoining areas to their empire. In 1856, Oudh was annexed to the British Empire. The British annexed Oudh to the British Empire by levelling the charge that the Nawab of Oudh was mismanaging the state. By applying this policy of misgovernment or mismanaging the affairs of the Oudh state, Oudh was annexed to the British Empire by Lord Dalhousie in 1856. The misrule in Oudh broke out because of the intervention of the British. In 1765, Treaty of Allahabad was signed between the Nawab of Oudh and Robert Clive. Audh was required to pay 50 lakh rupees to the British as war indemnity. In 1801, half of the dominions of Audh lost to the British. It was because of these policies, misrule spread in Audh. The British was actually responsible for the outbreak of misrule in Audh. Now, what were the major administrative reforms of Lord Dalhousie? However, he was an annexationalist par excellence. He turned his attention for the welfare administrative measures as well. What were the major administrative reforms introduced by Lord Dalhousie? Even though by the Charter Act of 1753, it was decided to relieve the Governor General Charter Act. The Charter Act of 1853, there was a provision to relieve the Governor General of India from the administrative responsibilities of Bengal, and it was put into effect during the period of Lord Dalhousie. Lord Dalhousie divested of the responsibilities of the governor in administering Bengal from the Governor General of India, and the administration of Bengal was placed simultaneously with the administration of India. And the newly acquired territories during the period of Lord Dalhousie was also brought under the control of a commissioner. He was also made directly responsible to the central government headed by the Governor General. Then military reforms. What reforms did Lord Dalhousie introduce in military? The annexationist policy of Dalhousie had extended British India from Punjab and Sindh in the west. Punjab was annexed to the British Empire in 1849 and Sindh was annexed to the British Empire in 1843 during the period of Ellenborough as the Governor General. And British India during the period of Dalhousie extended from Punjab and Sindh in the west to the Bengal in the east. It occupied a larger territory in India, and this occupation of this larger territory necessitated better distribution of army in India, and he shifted the headquarters of the Bengal artillery to Meerut. It was earlier located at Calcutta. Now he shifted the headquarters of the artillery from Calcutta to Meerut. And later the permanent headquarters of the army were gradually shifted to the hill station of Shimla. However, this process was completed. The shifting of the headquarters of the army was completed only in 1865, and he reduced the number of Indian soldiers in the army, and he also, while at the same time he reduced the number of Indian soldiers in the army, a regular force was created under the direct control of the Punjab administration. He also raised Gurkha regiments. These Gurkha regiments and the Sikh force raised by the Dalhousie helped the British in the suppression of the rebellion of 1857. Telegraph. Dalhousie is known as the father of electric telegraph in India. During his period, 4,000 miles of electric telegraph lines were constructed. The first telegraph line connected Calcutta with Agra in 1853. The first telegraph line was connected Calcutta with Agra. It was laid in 1853 during the period of Lord Dalhousie. It connected the British capital in India, that is Calcutta, which served as the British capital. It connected with Peshawar in northwest, Bombay, Madras and other parts of the country. In Burma, telegraph line was laid connecting Rangoon and Mandalaya. No doubt the construction or the laying of the telegraph lines helped the British in the suppression of the rebellion of 1857. Now, he also introduced postal reforms. He passed the Post Office Act in 1854. With the passage of the Post Office Act in 1854, a Director General of Post was appointed to superintend the work of post offices in all provinces, and a uniform rate of half an anna per letter irrespective of the distance was introduced. It was during the period of the Dalhousie. Postage stamp was used and it introduced. With the introduction of the postage stamp, the Department of Post became a source of revenue. With the extension of the British territories into new parts of the country, the sale of postage stamps increased and it brought income to the British Empire in India. He also reorganized Public Works Department. Earlier, the Public Works had been the part of a military board. Military board engaged in the public works, but it was Dalhousie. He set up a separate Public Works Department in India. Irrigation works began under Public Works Department. The main stream of the Ganges Canal was completed during the period of Dalhousie by the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department started the construction of the Barido Canal. It was started by the Public Works Department, started by Lord Dalhousie. In addition to that, many bridges were constructed by the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department took the work of the Grand Trunk Road during the period of Dalhousie. Now coming into the commercial reforms introduced by Lord Dalhousie. The harbours of Karachi, Bombay and Calcutta were developed. because of the free trade during this period, these ports were developed and British manufactured products reached these ports, and from these ports these British manufactured products were sent to interior parts of the country. He also constructed a number of lighthouses. Now, one of the major reforms in the educational field took place during his period. It was none other than Wood's Dispatch of 1854. Sir Charles Wood, he was the president of the Board of Control. You now recall that it was in 1835. English system of education was introduced in India through the famous Macaulay Minute. And now, after the introduction of the English system of education in 1835, during the period of William Bentinck as the Governor General of India, now 19 years had passed. So, the British government wanted to examine the growth of the English system of learning introduced in India during the period of William Bentinck, and it was with this aim in mind, the British government appointed a committee with Sir Charles Wood as its chairman. It came into known as Wood's Dispatch, which inquired into the functioning of the introduction of the English system of education in India from 1835 and suggest a number of measures to further improve the English system of learning in India. What were the major recommendations tendered by Sir Charles Wood? It recommended the introduction of the grant in aid system, that is, the private enterprises would also bring into educational sector, since it was not possible for the British government to construct buildings and other infrastructural facilities for running educational institutions. So, the private enterprises would come forward providing infrastructural facilities and land for running educational institutions. It recommended the creation of 3 universities in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. In this Wood's Dispatch, it was made clear that these universities should be modelled upon the University of London. Created in 1836. A Department of Public Instruction was to be created in each of the 5 provinces of the company: Northwest Province, Bengal, Madras, Bombay and Punjab. In all these 5 provinces, a Department of Public Instruction was to be created. Creation of teachers training institutions. These teachers training institutions should be created to provide training to the teachers in pedagogy. Promotion of women education. These were the major recommendations tendered by Sir Charles Wood in his famous dispatch of 1854. Most of the recommendations tendered by Sir Charles Wood were accepted by Dalhousie government and introduced. But the establishment of the universities in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras were done only in 1857 during the period of Lord Canning. Even though the report was submitted to Dalhousie's period, the universities were established during the time of Lord Canning as the Governor General of India. Calcutta University was created in January 1857. It was followed by the creation of Bombay University in March 1857. In the same year of July, Madras University was created in South India. These three universities were created in three different parts of the country to meet the educational needs of the people in different parts of India. Calcutta University was created in eastern part of India. Bombay University was created in western part of India. University of Madras was created in southern part of India. Department of Public Instruction was created during the period of Dalhousie in 1855. Department of Public Instruction was created in 5 provinces. With the creation of the Department of Public Instruction, the earlier Committee on Public Instruction was abolished. TTIs were created. Promotion was given to women education, especially with the establishment of Bedouin institutions in Calcutta. J.E.D. Bedouin, who came forward establishing girls' schools. Now, one of the another greatest contributions of Dalhousie was the introduction of the railways in India. First of all, let us look the circumstances behind the introduction of the railways by the British in India. What were the reasons behind the introduction of the railways in India by the British? And it was the period of the free trade. British manufactured products were imported from Britain to Indian ports in Karachi, Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. From these ports, these manufactured Manchester made British goods were to be brought to interior parts of India. Likewise, the British collected raw materials from the interior. From these interior parts, these raw materials were to be brought to these Indian ports, where from these raw materials were shipped from Indian ports to Britain. And these raw materials sent back to India as manufactured products. And the British considered the introduction of the railway would serve as a chief mode of transport to transport imported Manchester made British goods from Indian ports to interior parts of the country, as well as the raw materials from the interior parts to ports. It was one of the reasons behind the introduction of the railways by the British in India. Second reason was that it would provide an opportunity to the British capitalists to invest their money in railways and to earn further profits. These British capitalists, with the introduction of the industrialization, by sending their machine made products across the globe, amassed huge wealth, and they were eagerly looking an opportunity to invest their huge capital to somewhere else and to earn further profits. They exerted pressure on the British government to start railways in India so that they could invest their money and earn further profits. Then English railway companies also wanted to start railways in India, because the rails, engines and other railway stores for the construction and maintenance of the railways could be imported to India. So, seeing a market for the rail engines, rail stores in India, the English railway companies also exerted pressure on British government to start railways in India. So they could sell their railway related materials. What was the stand of Lord Dalhousie during this period? He wrote it to home government in Britain to introduce railways to help the army to move around disturbed areas speedily so that the rebellions could be suppressed, as well as to protect the border areas against the possible foreign attack. So, in disturbed areas as well as in the event of foreign attack, the army could be mobilized to the disturbed areas as well as to the Indian borders against possible foreign attack. These were the reasons cited by Lord Dalhousie for the introduction of the railways in India. The railway companies started as a joint stock company in India. And in order to encourage these capitalists to invest their money for starting railways in a remote country, the British government guaranteed 5% interest on their investments. Thus, all the railway companies, in reality, English companies protected by the British government through the guarantee of interest. Because of the guarantee of interest made by the British government, Indian revenue was drained out of the country to Britain, because this 5% guarantee of interest was paid out from Indian revenue. These English railway companies imported to India engines, rails, machinery, as well as even coal during the first decade. Because of the import of these engines and rail stores, this coincided with the introduction of the railway. Industries did not develop in India. In most of the countries, when railway was introduced, railway related industries also developed. But in India, even after the introduction of the railway related industries did not develop, like iron and steel production or engineering industry or mining. Why didn't these industries develop in India? Because all these goods for the construction of railways were imported from Britain to India. So, these industries related to railway did not develop in India. However, later the introduction of the railways developed modern technology in India, and it also provided an opportunity to Indians belonging to the different parts of the country to travel different areas of the country and meet people belonging to the different areas. It played a key role in unifying the country, which the imperial Mughals had not done. These are the questions to which you are now able to answer. What were the administrative reforms of Lord Dalhousie, and how did Lord Dalhousie bring Indian states under British control? Thank you, dear students, for watching my class. Thank you.
Many a times we all think, who am I? Why am I doing whatever I am doing? Why do I feel attracted towards others? Why do I feel very aggressive in certain instances? Why certain people or certain type of acts, they repel me? Why is it that I always search for certain things which look very, very ambiguous? These are the things, these are the questions that all of us experience, all human beings. And you would realize that many a times certain domains of knowledge, especially within social sciences and all sciences at large, when you look at it from a philosophical point of view, they would try to give you the answers to these questions. Now, one of the branches of understanding which helps you understand things much better, which also helps you understand not only what is visibly present before you, what is glaringly apparent to you, rather which also tells you what is not visible at all, what goes within. Okay. And this is the subject knowledge, what is called as psychology. It is not only that it helps you understand the manifested behavior, the overt behavior, how you talk, how you speak, how you say it, how you interact, how you respond, not only that, but also what goes within, what makes you do this, what makes you think this way, what makes you act that way. Why is it that certain things you appreciate, certain things you feel attracted towards, and why is it that many a times in certain type of situations you feel you should completely go out of it, you should not get anyway involved into it, the repulsion. Why is it that certain acts, although you do not appreciate, still you get involved into it? Then you reinterpret your own behavior and you start giving birth to certain type of experiences, shame, guilt, pleasure, appreciation. You see world in a particular way, you analyze it in a particular way, you derive emotion out of it, feeling out of it, and the mix of what you perceived along with what you experience, it makes you act in a particular way, respond in a particular way. Your response is received by somebody else, and then the other person also responds in that situation. Now, there are situations where several people interact simultaneously. The situation remains constant and different people interact at the same time. You realize that your identity gets lost. You are not an individual. You act what is called as group behavior. You realize that you do not have an explanation for either favoring somebody or completely being unfavorable to the other person. You later on realize that it was a favorable or an unfavorable attitude towards that individual. You realize that you repeat certain form of behavior. Why? You do not know. People tell you that such type of repetitions are not normal. Human beings largely do not do that. And then you realize that okay, this is a particular pattern of a behavior for which I require the help of a specialist. The specialist tells me that this pattern of behavior is given a particular taxonomy, a particular nomenclature, which is either some aberration in the normal behavior, it is a neurotic form of a behavior, psychotic form of a behavior, it could be a psychosomatic response. And psychology, it covers all of this. So, if you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand others, this is the subject which helps you achieve that target. It is behavioral sciences that makes you understand human beings, human responses, human existence in complete totality.